Absolutely, Karen. I mean, that is the real question, isn't it? But to answer that, I'm joined now first on CNBC by the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Energy, Dan Brouillette. Dan, thanks so much for joining us early in the morning here from the World Energy Congress. I want to kick off by asking you about the news that's really been circulating over the weekend, and that, of course, is the ouster of Khalid al-Falih, a real class act, someone who's been at the helm now of not just the Saudi energy policy, but really the face of OPEC over the last few years. How do you expect this to change things in terms of the energy dynamic?
Well, in terms of the energy dynamic, I don't see very much change happening at all, Haley, to be honest. And certainly with regard to the relationship with the U.S. government in particular, we've enjoyed a long, very good, very professional relationship with Mr. al-Falih. We have also had the same relationship with Mr. Abdulaziz. So we don't expect any significant change in the direction of either the policy or, importantly, the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States.
Definitely no, isn't it, with the United States? Because at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia, a very strong U.S. ally, but at the same point, this is a man, Mohammed bin Salman, who's really got to get those energy prices up if he manages to or wants to manage to achieve the Vision 2030 goals, doesn't it?
That's true, and unfortunately,
and that's something that the president doesn't want to see happening, particularly as we go into an election cycle.
He's got a very tough road ahead of him, I must say. U.S. production will continue to go up all throughout 2019 and certainly into 2020. Our own EIA, the Energy Information Administration, is projecting that we'll see at least 13 million barrels per day produced in the United States by the end of this year, and that could go up slightly to 13.5 in 2020. So that'll have a profound impact on pricing around the world. So he does have his work cut out for him if the goal is to raise oil prices.
A tough act to follow, particularly with that relationship with the Russians, because he was really seen as the face of that relationship, the man who could really drive the policy with the JMMC. How do you see that evolving?
I don't see that changing very much, to be honest. As we have mentioned and others have mentioned in the press, Mr. Abdulaziz has had a very, very good relationship, a very senior position within his government. He knows the Russians well. I think that relationship will continue as we have seen it over the course of the last 5 years.
What are you hoping to hear from him later today?
What I hope to hear is a little bit more about his vision for what they want to do, not only with regard to oil and gas and Saudi production of such, but what are they going to do in renewables? What are they going to do with the rest of the energy portfolio that he is now responsible for?
And in terms of your own trip out to the region, you're here at the World Energy Congress. It's an opportunity, as you say, to meet with everybody, the major players in the industry, as well as government officials. But also, you'll next be heading to Egypt. Walk me through that.
Well, Egypt is a very exciting place as well.
We're going to see more U.S. investment there.
We are. I think we will. Eastern Med gas is very, very important, not only to this region, but to the rest of the world, particularly Europe. So we're going to be working closely with the Egyptians, with the Israelis, others in this region who want to work with U.S. companies, who want to work with other companies to develop that gas. Importantly, build the infrastructure necessary to get it to market. And that's what I'll be talking about in Egypt when I leave here today.
Walk us through really the election cycle. We're coming up in an election. President Trump, of course, wants to keep those oil prices low. What's your price outlook? Because at the end of the day, this is something, as we say, that is a seriously contentious issue for the United States and potentially Saudi Arabia.
Sure. Well, as you know, Hadley, we don't set our price. Our energy policy is not designed to affect price. That's not what we do for a living.
And yet it does.
And yet it does, because of our production numbers. But the president has an all-of-the-above strategy. He talks often about energy dominance, and the world often asks, what does that mean? It just simply means that we're going to produce as much energy as we can, as cleanly as we can, and as affordably as we can. And whatever happens to the world price of oil, whatever happens to the world price of whatever, electricity, it doesn't really matter, then so be it. But from America's standpoint, we're going to continue to produce energy.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.